This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. Happy summer, everyone. Like most of you, I'm sure, I've been thinking about ways to maximize summer enjoyment for my family without breaking the bank. And unfortunately for me, that usually means camping. I admit it, I'm not a fan. I prefer sleeping inside. I prefer eating food prepared in a normal kitchen. I like showering. You know, the basic modern conveniences. But my wife, well, she claims to love camping and wants our kids to feel the same way. As a result, every summer at least once, I have to find the cooler, the bug spray, the sleeping bags, and the tent, pack the car, and drive up the coast to one of California's undeniably beautiful scenic campgrounds. And I mean gorgeous. We usually stay at one that has campsites right on the beach. There's also one that, while naturally breathtaking, includes the added feature of an express freight train thundering through the site at 4:45 every morning. Less wonderful, unless you enjoy an adrenaline rush in place of your morning coffee. But still, we go camping. Most of the time we go in a group with my wife's sister and her family, so there's 8 of us with hardly anything to do except sit around a fire and make sure that everything we own will smell like smoke for 3 weeks. But I do occasionally enjoy cooking over an open fire, and when the flames die down and the kids bust out the marshmallows, well, then it's time for the scary stories. So if you're planning on going camping this summer, or if you just like scaring the shit out of children, I'll be offering some classic campfire tales over the next few weeks as part of the Devil Within's Quick Bites for Summer that I've been playing around with lately. Hope you enjoy. And welcome back to The Devil Within. You're listening to Campfire Stories, Part 1. Okay, so we have to start with the granddaddy of them all. Seriously, if this one is told correctly to an audience that isn't familiar with it, like a bunch of kids, it can be very effective. About 3 years ago, when my kids and my nieces and nephews were all between 8 and 11 years old, they were brought to tears by this story. One of them demanded to sleep in the car. And the right age is paramount here. Don't waste the story on a kid that lacks early deductive reasoning powers or on one too old to realize that it's bullshit. Somewhere around 9 or 10 is perfect for this story. And you all know it. It's called The Hook. On a hot summer night, a young couple out on a date decide to drive up to a spot popular with teenagers in love. It's an out-of-the-way spot along a dirt road that leads to an overlook where you can see the city lights off in the distance while being surrounded by trees with the bright moon and starry skies above. Nervous and excited, the young lovers clumsily stumble their way through some small talk, discussing the movie they just saw, plans for the summer, where they want to go to college. But then, the moment arrives. An awkward silence grabs them in the still of the summer evening. They both know it. Soft music is playing through the speakers. The windows are open just enough to allow an intoxicating breeze to fill the car. The girl smiles and looks away. She's leaving it up to her date to make the first move. And he does. He gently pushes her soft blonde hair behind her ear, and she turns to him. He's suddenly so close to her face that she catches her breath and closes her eyes as he moves in to kiss her. Suddenly, both of their cell phones go off at the same time with what sounds like an Amber Alert. The moment's ruined, at least for now, as they both instinctively check their phones, only to realize it's no Amber Alert or even a Silver Alert. It's a warning from local law enforcement that there's been an escape from a local hospital for the criminally insane. As they read the notice on their phones, the boy looks out his window, and just over the trees, about a half-mile away, he can make out the lights of Fairview Hospital, the same facility mentioned in the alert he and his date just read about on their phones. The man the police were looking for was a serial killer known only as The Hook. He had been in lockdown psychiatric treatment for more than 20 years after a jury found him not guilty for the murders of more than 20 women. Not guilty due to an obvious mental problem. The man was clearly insane. He would attack young women as they sat in cars on dates with their boyfriends, and using a metal hook that replaced his right hand after an accident in some war somewhere, he would cut them open across their belly and leave them to die. Now, everyone knew about this guy, the Hook. Even though he'd been in jail since before they were born, these two kids on Lover's Lane knew about the Hook. And they both knew how close they were to Fairview Hospital. But what were the chances? I mean, really, did they have anything to worry about? Well, take a guess who wanted to stick around and try and recreate the simmering magic from just a few minutes earlier, and who thought it would be a good idea to get the hell out of there. That's right. The young man did his best to convince his date that everything was fine. They were totally safe. But she wasn't having it and demanded to be taken home immediately. I mean, the kid even tried his push the hair behind the ear trick again, a move that worked wonders earlier, but this time instantly shut down. And he knew the night was over. Frustrated beyond words, the kid started the car, put it in drive, and peeled out of there back toward civilization. The two didn't speak a word all the way back to her house. But, always the gentleman, once arrived, the boy hopped out to get the door for his date. But as soon as he reached for it, he saw it. A bloody hook dangling from the handle. So when the story lands and a kid connects the dots that the bad guy was right outside the car, about to open the damn door, that's when the darkness gets them and they either start hooting and hollering or they go quiet and start crying. Now, there are, of course, many variations to this story. The biggest and most popular variation adds a whole additional level of danger. Basically, once they realize the bad guy has escaped and could be in the area, the car won't start. The guy decides to be a hero and walk for help, leaving the girl in the safety of the locked car. A little while later, she hears a tapping on the window. She finds a flashlight, turns it on, and sees, just outside the passenger side, the killer with his arms outstretched, holding her boyfriend's head in his good hand and the car keys dangling off his bloody hook. The other variation that has the girl surviving picks up when the guy leaves for help. After a while, the girl begins to hear a dripping sound hitting the roof of the car. Drip, drip, drip. Terrified, she dares to peek her head out the window and look up, where she sees her boyfriend dangling from a tree branch above the car, bleeding out from a huge slice across his belly. In pure survival mode, the girl desperately tries the car one last time, and hallelujah, it starts, and she screams out of there. It's when she gets home that she finds the bloody hook hanging from the door handle. Again, she got away just in time. The origins of this story are varied. It's rather obviously a product of the conservative 1950s and serves as a warning to young girls to not make out with their boyfriends on Lover's Lane, lest they fall victim to a deranged serial killer that will gut them with a metal hook. However, the real inspiration for the tale is most likely a result of what's called the Texarkana Moonlight Murders that occurred during the winter and spring of 1946. Texarkana is a region in the southern United States, in the area where Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana meet. Basically, northeast Texas, southeast Arkansas, and northwest Louisiana. The murders in question took place at various Lover's Lanes across Miller County, Arkansas, and Bowie County, Texas. Very similar, actually, to the methods used by the son of Sam killer David Berkowitz a generation later. This assailant, known as the Phantom Killer, would quietly approach young lovers in parked cars, pull a gun, and start firing into the car. Over 4 separate attacks, all on weekend nights on secluded backcountry roads, 8 victims were shot, with 5 of them dying from their wounds. The killer wore a mask, was incredibly conscientious about not leaving any evidence behind, and was never caught. Police had a very long list of suspects, but all were eventually cleared. There are numerous theories about who the killer was, what his motivations were, and most interestingly, why he suddenly decided to stop killing. While the Texarkana Moonlight Murders eventually faded from the national front pages, the legacy of that terrifying time in the farmlands of the Deep South is a story that has lasted across the generations, been tweaked and updated. A creepy hooked appendage was added for effect sometime in the 1960s, and given the progressive nature of today's society, the aim to scare girls out of premarital sex is more of a punchline than a serious consideration. But still, something about the first time a group of young people hear the story told well, you understand its staying power. Thanks for listening. More Campfire Tales next week, so be sure you're following The Devil Within wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. You can also check out our socials at The Devil Within Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time, stay safe out there. The Devil Within is a Cloud 10 Media production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. Written and produced by Brandon Morgan. Executive produced by Sim Sarna. Our post-production supervisor is Bruce Whitkin, who also provided original music for this episode. For The Devil Within, I'm your host, Brandon Morgan.